So, anyways, I was gonna go ahead and write the next movie. The title of it is called Transformers Next Gen, and it basically starts out as a continuation from the way the other movie ended, where she's sort of nervous about going back to her old life, and then um, she's given an opportunity to be a different person. So it just shows her, um, taking flight and then flying into a different section of this area in the UK, where there's this a few really really old castles, and then one gigantic one that she ends up turning back into her new human body self, and walking towards the front entrance. Well, there's this scene where she's knocking on this person's castle door. Now, in this different sort of cinematography approach, there's just basically these close-up scenes of her sitting on a really nice maroon leather couch, and then across from a woman that's basically just doing a lot of close-ups. So there's close-ups of hands and grabbing small teacups, and then there's close-ups of looking at both of them through the fire and then coming through the flames and then the sparks, and then eventually there's the problem of some things that Merlin told her about deeming somebody worthy of being an Autobot, and that's where when somebody is wanting to be an Autobot, the person, which would be her, that has to choose who's worthy and who isn't, because the girl is really mad. She's basically, after being told a bunch of stuff, she's wanting her to turn into the pterodactyl, and she's saying to her, once I do this, you will become obsessed. You'll become stricken with jealousy and envy. And unfortunately, at that point, what will end up happening is I'm going to be forced to tell you exactly why you are not qualified to be an Autobot. And then she sits back and she's just like, oh. And then there's this moment where, and this is all done in short clips, but basically she's being pushed out by a woman that's completely enraged. And, well, the same girl, is now standing outside, but she's assuming, she's waiting for the door to slam closed, but then when it doesn't, it's in the brightness of day. She turns around and there's this pudgy woman standing there with her arms folded, and she's waiting for her to transform. And then so she's surprised, and she's new at this, but she's just glad there wasn't a fight that broke out. And she's, okay, well, I warned you. She goes ahead, and there's the sound of the Transformers, but she changes into this pterodactyl, yellow and white. And then there's this thud, and this woman has her eyes roll up in the top of her head, and she's laying on her back. Well, then there's this clip scene. A lot of things are done in clips, and then there's this woman that's coming out of this really far away spot in the distant part of her brain where she can hear someone saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And then it comes louder and louder and louder, and she blinks, and then she can see this girl that's blurry at first, and then she sits herself up further and further on the couch, but most of her stomach keeps getting in the way. And then she starts to talk, and then she realizes what it is she's going to say, because she wants to be an Autobot. And there's always the staff that she was holding and brought to the house in the first place. And so she sees it and sees her, and then she's wanting to be a Transformer, obviously. Now, she's starting to talk, and the woman watches her stop herself, and then she cocks her head to the side a little bit, and then she starts to talk again, and then the woman cocks her head straight back, like just watching her stutter and go through her own mental breakdown. Eventually, she just exhales sharply, and then she sits up, and then stands up, and then they're both soon walking up these brick staircases. And gets higher and higher. Now, a view over the head of this castle while it's becoming sunset would show that it's just this huge castle with 3 huge towers to it. And there's nothing but more stairs until finally there's a door. And there's this 3-leveled huge circular room of 3 levels of books on all sides, and two ladders, both on wheels that could go all the way to the top. And there's just this huge window in the back, and then there's a desk in the middle of the room, and then there's two couches, one on each side. And there's this guy fully dressed, and he's completely complacent, and he's reading on his back on this couch. Now, he's dressed well for himself, and he's extremely patient, and he notices two people standing in the doorway, and he's innocent by his very nature, and he kind of makes this, oh. And with still wearing his shined shoes, you can see from his perspective, he puts his feet down, and then he sits up and stands up, and he goes, what can I do for you? And then she explains to him that this woman has said that she's the new Autobot human version of Transformers, or next gen Transformer, and she can change from human shape into a pterodactyl. And then the woman is like nodding and then using the staff. And then he goes, how can I help you? Why have you come to my castle? And she goes, well, I was told by, and then she named some person that, if there was somebody that I should go to that has a lot of money, a lot of connections, and the fact that technically I have no training, even though I can turn into a pterodactyl, and even though, and now I'm a sudden transformer, but I have no training to protect myself otherwise, I was hoping for your help. And then he goes, I have no idea what you're talking about. You must have me mistaken with someone else. And she goes, well, I could prove it to you, because there's this point during the conversation where he's obviously convinced that she's just a deranged, somebody that has coerced her way into convincing the maid into letting her upstairs. But this is obviously a mistake, and he's just basically patronizing her, going along with what it is she's saying without even a second believing in anything that she's saying. So she goes, well, I could always prove it to you. And he goes, what, by turning into a pterodactyl? And then she goes, well, yes. And he lights his pipe, and then he goes, by all means. And then there's this moment where two bodies are on the front porch on their backs in front of the castle. And so she ends up with the sound of this Transformers sound going back into a human self, and picks up her staff. And eventually there's this conversation once they're going down some stairs, a different staircase. Obviously they're having, they all have fire torches, and there's this door that opens with a press of the brick, and then he's showing her around and giving her the full tour of everything that the Queen could pay for, which is much like the Central Intelligence Agency as far as anything you've seen, with that tour of like cars and getting special weapons that are unusual weapons. Well, now there's this room that he ends up showing her that has 5 cars in it, and he goes, obviously you'll need a mode of transportation that's more than just flight. And so there's, red Ferrari, a yellow Hummer, a white Porsche, a black Lamborghini, and a blue Audi. And, she smiles at the white Porsche, and she gets inside, and it's got beige interior. And she is eventually shown towards this table. Now, he's at this point showing her a table that it's got 5 suitcases on it, but since they had this argument about how he wasn't worthy and how she didn't want to tell him why he wasn't worthy moments before, or upstairs actually, he's already decided that he's stubborn and upset, and so he says, well, based on knowing what it is you aren't worthy for, I just decided that, and then he pushes the particular suitcase towards her. This one's just perfect for you. She opens it up, and it has, a small knife that goes on a garter belt for underneath a really nice. And then she goes, what am I, a prostitute? He goes, I didn't say that. Why would you say that? And then there's a gun that would go on 2 leather straps that would go on the opposite leg. And then there's some 3 bottles of different types of drugs, like canisters. So he goes, this one will put somebody to sleep for 2 hours, and this one will paralyze somebody for 1 hour, and this one will make anyone appear dead for up to 6 hours. And all of them, once they touch water, will be in under a second active. So, and then she's still upset, like giving him sort of the excess underbite, like, I'm not a prostitute. And then there's the moment where he goes, now to test out your gun or your marksmanship. So he's got the small gun out of the holster that goes on the other leg. And before she fires it, and he goes, now, even though I would love for the case that is perfect for you to not be equipped with such expensive machinery, unfortunately, the Queen's extremely generous budget is lent to even our worst gun being probably the finest gun in the world. And then she goes, why? What can it do? She aims it at the statue's head and fires it off, and it's a laser gun. And he goes, and that would be unlimited ammunition. So there's these bright blue bullets that come out, and they're endless. Well, she smiles at this and puts it in her holster, and then next thing you see is her driving with the scenic ocean in the background to the nearest ferry, and then traveling overseas, eventually arriving in the United States, where her job to find new Autobots, humanoid Autobots. Now, just before arriving to port, there was the dream that she was having with Merlin that started talking to her. Now, he explained all the things that she would have to go through in trying to find and isolate someone that's worthy versus people that aren't, before ever having a conversation with them. Now, these are basically done with rhyming quotations that he has made up himself, but basically they would synopsisize somebody's clothing or the way they walk to shortcutting the process into someone that's worthy. So when you're looking through her eyes, walking down these really busy sidewalks, you're hearing his voice say a rhyme about someone who walks fast, is in a hurry to crash, or someone that is, wearing this color or that color, or this height or this age, or this tight or this loose, anything and everything. But there is something for anything and everything while she's walking, and it's kind of something that is actually helping her, not distracting her, not giving her any problems. It's true. It's just something that the world hasn't actually said. But a lot of the things that he's saying are even having to do with personal crises of certain rhyming to certain people. But if you know as many as she now knows, you find yourself not on that street, and you find yourself sort of wandering out of this area of town into this park-like setting where there's a girl with a nice, t-shirt that goes all the way up to the top of her neck, and then she's got a nice white undershirt, and then she's got a white belt on with blue jeans on, bell bottoms, and then white shoes. And then there's a rhyme to go along with that about casual nature and self-preservation. And then now she's finding herself sitting there. Now, one of the things that he said just before she ported also was how she'll be able to know someone's name and where they were and where they're going. And a gift of foresight while talking to somebody. So she finally decides to make a conversation with a girl sitting on this park bench. And now, because she knows where she works, and she starts to strike up a conversation about how, I always wanted to work there, and I can't believe that, and I work at this such and such place, and I thought it was so awesome. And then and she also said, aren't you so and so? And that's how she started the conversation. She goes, yeah. And she goes, and you work at? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, oh, I always wanted to work there. And when you guys did that, and then there was Merlin's voice that says this certain campaign name. And then she says it, and they both duplicate it and say it at the same time. She goes, I just thought that was so amazing. She goes, oh, thanks. I was a part of that. I did. And then she says which role she played in it. And then there was something about Merlin saying, after they were talking for a little while, and the girl starts to say something. He would always talk in rhyme, but basically someone that is ready and available right this very second is never what they seem, but only when you are ready to lay down your head and dream. So even if she gets far with her tonight because she just said yes right from the start, it means she's a loser or a liar. So she ends up saying, well, actually, I can't. I'm sorry, even though they were really hitting it off. And then she starts to walk away, and then Merlin's voice comes on and says, however, someone that just remembered how to make a tie that binds always remembers a heart. A heart's love is blind, or something like that. And then she turned around and she goes, however, and then she says something about how she'll go and break her rules. And then the girl gets this beaming look in her eye. And they end up spending lunch together and talking. And then the girl ends up taking her back to her apartment. And then the things that she was talking about her boyfriend. And then obviously the Transformer girl is agreeing with her about how that's so sad that she got in a fight with her boyfriend and he still hasn't come back. And then that was his room. And then they started out as roommates. And then she's just like sad. And then they end up having dinner over wine, and then that's when she starts talking about, what about these Transformers? And she goes, I know, they're so cool, and I can't believe they saved the world, like, how many times? Well, eventually there's this conversation about, like, if you were to, like, be able to transform into something, like, what would you choose? And she goes, like, I don't know. And she goes, like, imagine it's like a wish. What would you wish for? What could you, transform into whenever you wanted to? I would say, like, a motorcycle. Yeah, with like one of those phantom people, a pink motorcycle. And she goes like, well, why don't you go out to the garage? Why? You'll see. She goes, because there's a pink motorcycle out there, right? Your wish is my command. Yeah, something like that. And she goes, all right. So next thing you see her opening the door and she's coming into the garage area and she goes into the center and she's got her arms out. She goes, look, no motorcycle. And then that's when the girl had her staff out that can shrink into a small staff under her belt, under her clothes, or a long staff, and it's full length, and it's got the clear ball at the top that's glowing, and then she's aiming at her, and there's this electricity bolt that fires at her. The girl gets hit and her arms go straight out. She lifts up off the ground, and then and then she watches her own arms turn silver, and then little square plates, and then she's got this circle of light around her, and then she sort of goes to the ground, and then that's when you see her shoulders jut out, and they're pink and hard like a motorcycle. And then now you can see her as a motorcycle looking at the girl standing there with the staff, and she has this sort of echo view when she talks to herself, like, what the? And she goes, you look great. And then she goes like, press the red button. She just goes like, what red button? And then Merlin comes in and then goes, or no, not Merlin. The core to the planet of the planet of the Transformers century or something. A voice from the actual planet itself says, concentrate and press the red button. And so she sort of now can sort of see with a spirit like just hovering over the thing. Oh, and then she's concentrates and presses down, and then there's this phantom girl that appears on top of the motorcycle. And it's nobody that either two of them have met. It's just, a random sort of phantom. And she goes, cool. Eventually it shows them back inside the house, and then she's like, so you're a Transformer? Like, that's so awesome. So, like, how many fights have you been? She goes, it's really new. Why don't we both... how does this happen, actually? I think they were standing outside the front of their house. Oh, and this is where and I had them, and they both end up going to sleep in their house, and they're side by side. They're in their beds, and then they wake up the next morning. And then they get up, and then, this is when the girl is saying, like, so you promised, you said that when we woke up, you would show me that what you could transform into. And then she just goes like, oh, you, might actually get that chance to see it. And then she goes, why? And then she goes, turn around. And there's this jet that just turned into a Transformer that's running at them, just stomping out every car on the street. And that's where you have an understanding about the sort of culmination of two stories coming in at once, where during the point of all of this beginning part of this movie that I talked about, there was a side story going on, and it was and they were going back and forth between this side story and this story the whole time. But instead of going back and forth, I'll just tell you what it was now so you can sort of add it in your mind later. Now, what it was there was a situation where after the Autobots won, and then there was the city that was at peace, well, there was during all of this older gentleman that had been killed by his granddaughter, and I guess he was not equipped to run the company anymore, and he had a lot of electronical listening devices around the whole entire city, so he knew exactly what was going on all the time. But he wasn't really anything that was impressing this granddaughter anymore, who just seems a little bit off, and she's like 21 years old, and she looks a lot like if you were to imagine Hayley Williams. Now, also try to imagine Hayley Williams, but something like wrong with one of her eyes. So either it be like something that's like a scar in that area, or she has a discoloration to her eye. But something that gives you the impression that on her best day, she's still extremely self-serving and arrogant and money hungry. And something has gotten to her, but she has this moment where or she's on the phone moments later, and then there's a dead guy in the desk, and then she's on the phone making orders like, it's so sad that he passed away, and I'm so sorry. Can you do this for me? Well, there's a program that she starts to run based on knowing that the Autobots are walking around, but she just sort of, out of curiosity or obsession, wants to know, where are they? What are they doing now? So a fascination and obsession. And there's then a computer that comes up from and then there's her bossing people around. Well, then the next time she's on the phone in the same office, the guy's got flies circling around him, and it's just a mess. She doesn't ever bother like having anything happen with the guy. And then there's two people in white that are looking at him like that work for her, and they're trying to think about how they're going to get him out of the chair, and they don't do this very often, so they're kind of like a little squeamish. And then eventually there's some other things going on, like conversations that are going on with the Autobots or whatever. And then there's now the guy getting moved out of the room on a gurney, and then she's just yelling and bitching people out. Well, eventually, as it turns out, by putting in some instructions to their software that their really, really wealthy corporation has for and around the city, she can detect basically anybody that ever says the word Autobots or transform. And so because it has basically a word detection system and the microphones are around the whole city, she has found out that there is a woman with a staff of Merlin, and she is able to turn into a pterodactyl, and has met a girl and has given her the ability to transform into a motorcycle. And now she's called the Decepticons. Now, this has all been going on the sidelines. Also, there was something about I think that oh right. I'm so sorry. So what ended up happening, I guess, after, I'm so sorry, but I have to go back. What ended up happening after she told her that she was a motorcycle was she ended up telling her, like, when she goes, well, how am I supposed to use this? I don't know how to use a motorcycle, and how am I supposed to fight with it? She was like, well, let's talk about it in the morning. Now then she goes, okay, fine. So she goes to sleep, and then the girl goes and turns into a pterodactyl, starts going around the city, and she sees that the Autobots are in the middle of a fight, and she ends up diving down, and with her talons, or with her wings all the way forward, she turns them into a point, and then rams her spikes at the end of her wings into a Decepticon. And there's like a high-pitched scream that it can do, and also really, really large claw-like talons, and plus it uses its wings like they're made out of pure metal, right, as like being able to bat things around. So kind of this fight that is really, really geared towards Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and some other Autobots that are fighting. And it was really not much of a fight because they pretty much already took over the planet, but apparently there's a portal from some past from the Decepticons that found out that they can travel back in time and then travel and use a portal and then be able to be on planet Earth again with their usual selves before they all died. And they only have just a few of them at first, but that's how they found out about it. And so there's this fight, but it's over before it starts, and then Optimus Prime tells them all during a meeting, but it's mostly staying with the, girl, and she's listening about there's the possibility that there could be more, and we need to be on the lookout. And then he goes, "Thank you, everybody." And then that's when she leaves, and then goes back, and then that's when the morning comes, and this car pulls up, and there's there's an entire scene right there. So there's this car that pulls up, and there's this silver car that pulls up, and then the girl and the both of the girls are standing there again, and then she's and then there's a hand that and then there's just the trunk that opens up. So then there's a silver case sitting there, and as if the guy is still a little bit mad about not giving them more options, he just knows what the motorcycle girl needs. So the Falcon or the pterodactyl girl just sort of like squints at the rear view mirror towards the driver's side door like, geez. And then the girl takes the case like it's all hers and she's happy, and then next thing you know, they're putting it on the table and they're looking at it. Now what she has is two big, huge pistols with oversized barrels on both sides, and it shows them near this wooded area, and she's just opening fire at a bunch of different trees, and then there's just this brochure that says, "Show up for this." Let's see, that was one of the classes. Oh, right. Show up for this yoga class because she's just like, if I get in a fight, I'm going to get my ass kicked. I don't know how to fight. And she goes like, she says a particular rhyme that Merlin told her, which is every Autobot has the spell to protect themselves under any means necessary. Now, what ends up happening, they end up going to this yoga class just so the girl could prove it to herself, is there's this instructor lady, and then she's saying, now, everybody that's a beginner, just don't feel bad if you're not that flexible. Given some time, you'll be caught up with just all the rest of us. So it's not anything that you need to feel bad about. I know it's going to hurt. I'm very sorry. And then the girl's just like, what are we doing here? She goes, it'll be fine. She ends up at the front of the class turning to the side with her hands in an oval above her, and then like all the women from a particular view in the room just shows all of them go over, and the girl's just like all of a sudden like goes all the way over, and she ends up looking at her, and the girl smiles, and there's this like sound of like the Transformers slightly, so like her rib cage is all metal, right, but it has skin over the top of it. And then there's this part where they're bending forward on their butts, like grabbing their toes. It's like zzz, like a metal sound, like a rotary sound. Well, anyways, she's super happy and she's smiling really big. And then they have to go to the second phone number on this brochure that says this Taekwondo class. Now, they're in there and they're shaking hands, and the guy's just like, oh yeah, okay, great. And there's the girl that's the pterodactyl girl, and she's standing there with her arms folded. She's not sure what she's going to see. And then there's both dressed in white, and anything that this guy does, she automatically knows how to do. And there's this Merlin's voice that goes off and says what it is that she's allowed to have to be able to protect her to be a good Autobot. So there's like blocking and then striking, and then this roundhouse this roundhouse kick that hits the guy on the face, and then anytime he gets hit, he just takes it very calmly and comes right back and wherever. And so it's basically sparring like back and forth. No matter what, she's just really, really good at what she's doing now. Eventually, he's noticing that there's moments that she's got the ability to have a sort of anti-gravity effect. And it's really obvious when he says like, well, what are you, like a transformer? And then she was walking away from him at the time, and then she turns around and runs a few feet, but then jumps and then does a spinning with fists side by side, spinning in the air, and hits him in the chest. Now he falls down, and then she's on top of him now with this winding motion spinning above him, and then pops both of her elbows together and then flies in the air and then lands next to him on her feet. So it's like something that he just lays there and he's just like, all right. Now she knows what it is that she's capable of, and both of the girls are standing outside when they now have this Decepticon running towards them. Now, he's in semi-slow motion, as always, and there's cars flying everywhere, and both of them turn into their robotic selves, like the pterodactyl, and then she turns into her motorcycle. Now, this fight basically was like, I know that the motorcycle girl is able to go up on the side of buildings, and then the pterodactyl, right. The girl says like, oh, now I remember. So the girl had just got done before the jet starts showing up. Like, I don't have any guns on this thing. How am I supposed to be a threat? And then that's when all of a sudden, the voice from the planet goes like, just what do you want? And it'll have it. And then so she flexes her mind, and then two guns appear on both sides, and then she just starts going pew, and she goes, that's the smallest little shot I've ever seen. And then the voice goes, concentrate harder, and then release. And then that's when you see like this. Well, then right when she figures this out, there's this Decepticon coming towards her. So they both split up. One goes on the side of the building. One's got its wings all the way out, and well, they go and get into this big fight, and this motorcycle is now standing on the far side of both of them in a brawl with the wings sort of enveloping this, and the bird is saying fire, and then she's so mad the whole thing turns into this like vibrating electrical motorcycle, and then there's this woman that's still a phantom on top, and then all of a sudden it just goes like poof, this huge electrical round bolt just hits it right as he turns around, square in the chest, and then he just goes, oh! And she starts racing up to it, firing shots like pew, 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 pew. And then right when he's almost dead, the pterodactyl steps on his head, and then both of them are... they think it's important to meet with Optimus Prime, and so they do. Optimus Prime says how there's this problem with the portal in the sky, and there's more and more of these Decepticons coming through it, and he needs for her to make more humanoid Autobots. And they came up with this plan, both of the girls, about how the one that's the motorcycle girl is just going to have a bunch of business cards. Oh, I forgot about... That's what I forgot. I'm so sorry. Okay, so after she's a motorcycle, she goes... they were back in her apartment that night before she goes for a flight, and I just remembered this, but she goes like, well, I wonder... No, the girl says, I wonder if you could fix your problems with your boyfriend now. She goes, why? She goes like, what do you want to look like? What do I want to look like? Yeah. Blonde, brunette, redhead. Just think of it like a wish. Well, because, if he doesn't like you, maybe he'll like her. And then she just goes like, I get to be another person. She goes, well, it's the second gift of the new humanoid robots, is that you get also a different version of yourself. And I just thought, you were sad, you can go over there, be whatever he wanted you to be, or be whoever you want to be, that he wants you now. And so she goes like, and then next thing you know, they're walking down the street, and she buzzes someone's doorbell, and then goes into his room and is really forward, and then the other girl is sitting there. When then they're making out, she goes, okay, well, I'll be outside. She goes, okay. I just remembered that. I don't know why I forgot that. Well, then she goes for that flight and then gets in that fight, noticing that Optimus Prime was in a fight, and then they met up the next morning. I don't know why I forgot that. But, so they have two alternate versions of themselves, and they're basically now walking down the sidewalk, but they have a faster approach that they want to do. But basically there's from above, there's this zapping that's going on between different people, and then there's a girl sliding in these business cards about meet us tomorrow, all saying the same thing for all of them at this time tomorrow at this place. Now there's later on in the afternoon, like all of these people when they're back at their apartments, and then there's like this view from above, like on a drone that's attached on a string above, 100 feet above an entire city, going from like one apartment to the next, like arguments that are breaking out, and then someone turns into a different person, like, oh my gosh, or someone's in a fight outside their house, and then they want to be this certain thing, and then they just turn and transform into like, a car or a dinosaur. And it's a faster approach, but it was unfortunate. And Optimus Prime said, I know that there's a meaningful way to do it, and unfortunately we don't have that kind of time. We need a lot more people than just us, and there's no telling how many Decepticons are gonna come through the portal. We need you to work faster. So there's suddenly all of these different circumstances that are done in like this speedway, but then slow motion of this scene inside someone's apartment. Really funny. Or something that happens where they turn into an actual item. And then, then there's this moment where there's a bunch of these different variations of humans and cars or dinosaurs all staring at these two girls. And then they're telling them that they're the next gen and Autobots, and unfortunately, the Decepticons have found a time portal, and they're showing up here tomorrow, and they all are standing there. And also Optimus Prime is there. So then, when they start saying like, I don't know how to fight, I can't fight, I don't know what to do, and then that's when there's like this, and there's this like ice cream truck that sort of shows up just for dramatic effect, and that same sort of European guy that gave those cases away just shows up, and he slides this older style white door open, and then he starts, because he already got the list from the girl about what everybody was. There's such and such, and then there's this type of monster, and then this type of robot, and then really basically like throwing out cases, and then they're just like, what's in them, Well, then it's just quick sort of moments where each one of them is looking at, different styles of guns, or different things that they could practice, and Merlin, and how all of them are just blessed to have defense mechanisms, so that whatever it is that they could encounter by being a humanoid Autobot, their bodies are supposed to sort of materialize certain talents. Like some of them can fly as humanoid Autobots with rockets on their feet as a part of their electrical or robotic self, and then some of them are tanks and so on and so forth. So their only difference between being a regular Transformer is that their regular self isn't a gigantic robot, it's a humanoid robot, and it's a second version of their humanoid robot in case they want to develop a second life out of safety reasons. So there's just a bunch of different views of them all like really excited about learning different stuff, and Optimus Prime is like, oh, they're going to be ready. And then she's like, they have to be. Well, then they all show up, and it's the same place. And then there's this portal in the sky that has a bunch of spaceships coming down. And then, well, there's the girl that has the staff, and that's what they're looking for. And then she just sort of stabs the ground, and then there's this big light that happens, and she goes, is this what you're looking for? And then when they start aiming and firing and coming down towards them, all of these like different people turn into all of these like different style of robots, and then with all types of militarized weapons, and now with special training and intuition training and martial arts training and levitation training. It's basically something to see a first time fight for a bunch of kids that just got an opportunity of a lifetime. And then yeah, that's the Transformers movie Next Gen.